From the crossroads of the Ozarks, it's PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert, and like it or not, we are back. We took our little bit of vacation over December, and it was nice.
It was. We spent 2 weeks watching kaiju movies.
We're still watching kaiju movies, and if you don't know what that is, it's Japanese monsters. So Godzilla, Mothra, Mechagodzilla.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the one we call Spiny Norman.
And Garrus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I call him Spiny Norman.
He does look like a hedgehog.
I know.
Supposed to be an ankylosaurus, but yeah, guilty pleasure watching guys in rubber suits wrestling like professional wrestling.
I know. It's so, I love it. I really, really do. So it's been very relaxing. We did some research, did a little bit of writing. So I've written about 7,000 words on the book 9. Well, I already had about 50, 60,000 words on book 9.
Which means you're most of the way there.
Well, getting there. I tried to make it over 100,000 words.
I'm at about 37,000 on the God Game.
I know.
So that's coming along.
That is the follow-up to the God Conspiracy if you are, playing the home game. but the God Conspiracy, such a good book, and I love the characters in it. And you sort of touched, when you did a little bit of a rewrite before we released it, was it last year?
It was last year. Because it suddenly became a lot more.
Brought it into the realm of Red Wing. So, and you're
Red Wing, but also the characters. Some of the characters came from your novel, The Armageddon Strain, which we're going to re-release.
Yep. It's there, and I'm starting a new series this year. I'm not really sure when the first book's going to come out, but the first book is called Angel Falls, and it is the John Thundercloud mystery series. And if you've read The Winds of Evil, then you know who John Thundercloud is. And this is early in his career, so you get to see John Thundercloud when he was younger and just really out there. Well, we'll also bring Red Wing into that, by the way.
So all of our fiction is sort of coming together.
It's merging together in a massive kaiju conglomeration of goodness.
But we're also working on a nonfiction book called The Gates of Hell that we plan to have out before the end of this year. And I've got about 35,000 words on that. So
and I've got about 5,000 words on that. I know it's not much compared to yours, but I've been thinking about fiction for a while. But yeah, there are a lot of things going on in the world that, happened while we were, watching kaiju movies. But we're going to catch up with you talking about December and talking about things going on in January. Speaking of things going on in January, McCarthy finally got in.
Kevin McCarthy is the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. The 118th Congress finally has a speaker who can gavel the sessions into activity.
And that I love the aides actually get paid now.
Oh, well, yeah, there's that. I'm sure that they were really excited for this. Took 15 votes, which, interestingly, I really love the way this was. No, I shouldn't say I love it. I was really amused at the way this was being portrayed by the corporate media. That, this is a failure of democracy. The Republicans can't get their act together. This is awful. This is horrible. The Congress is in the gridlock. We can't get anything done. So, well, look, back in the 19th century, there was a fellow who became Speaker of the House after, I think it was 133 votes.
It was. I was going to say it was over 100 votes.
Folks, this is what it looks like when people have the right to vote and choose. This is democracy, or a representative republic in action. We're closer to a democracy than we were when the framers founded the Constitution, wrote the Constitution.
And mind you, back in 1850s, they had knives and guns in there.
Yes, they were
sitting there, sharpening their knife on the sole of their boot.
Right.
That was sort of intimidation.
Heavy canes that they used to club one another into submission occasionally.
Yeah, it was actually physical.
A little more toxic masculinity back in the day. And I use that phrase in air quotes because I think the world could use a little more toxic masculinity right now.
Not toxic.
No,
they
just masculinity. It's what
Can we
progressives.
Just boost the testosterone amongst the male population?
Well, it's what progressives, and again, that word should always be in air quotes because what they propose, what they support is not progressive, it's regressive, but it is not toxic. Being masculine is not toxic if it is properly applied.
Any more than truly being feminine in the biblical sense of the word.
Yeah.
Women and true women, if you look at Proverbs 31, she's busy.
Yeah.
She's doing stuff.
Absolutely. And she's allowed to run a business and conduct her own affairs and be master mistress of her household.
Yeah.
But, back to the Congress, this was portrayed as a failure of our political system, and it's all the Republicans' fault. It's like, what? The fact that they're voting to choose a guy that they can all agree on, or at least, God bless the 20 true conservatives, the Freedom Caucus, the core of the Freedom Caucus, that really stood up and said, the way we've been doing business is not acceptable to us. And unless we get some concessions on the way things are run so that we're more accountable to our constituencies, the people who vote for us, not the constituencies, the lobbyists and the corporations who pay for guys like Kevin McCarthy.
Yes. Who buy and sell them.
Right. We are not going to support the McCarthy candidacy. So they got, apparently, now we'll see how well this deal holds. I'm old enough now to know that a contract is only as good as the person who signs the deal. And if that person's no good, then the contract's no good. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But folks like Andy Biggs, Lauren Boebert, Chip Roy, Matt Gaetz, and so on, if they did get some concessions, especially on voting for appropriations bills, the House just pushed through a $1.7 trillion omnibus spending bill before the end of the 117th Congress when the Democrats had control, and Republicans went along with it to get it through.
And they airlifted it over to Biden, who was on vacation.
In the Virgin Islands, right. Yeah, he's not even in D.C. So it's generally sold through the media as we have to do this, otherwise our soldiers won't get paid. Well, that's because you're basically jamming together 8 or 9 different appropriations bills into one omnibus spending bill. Congress hasn't operated with a constitutionally mandated budget
for decades
now. So they just kind of keep kicking the can down the road. We'll just, deem as passed, and we'll just, and Republicans,
but
the
it's a
uniparty
bill.
It is a bloated bill. The uniparty in Washington, D.C. has been doing this for a long time. It's how business gets done. Well, you've got 20 people in Congress who stood up and said, we're not going to vote for Kevin McCarthy just because the corporate media says that he's the guy. He might be the Republican leader, but we're not voting for him for speaker until. And the way this works is just as in the Knesset, where you've got to get 61 members in your coalition to form a government. The Speaker of the House has to get at least
216, I think.
218.
Oh, was it 18?
Yeah, it's half plus one. So 435 in the Congress, so you need 218 to get it. And with Republicans only having 223 seats, they had to get at least, they had to whittle down those 20 objectors down to 5 or fewer.
I like the way you say half plus one, because there are 435 members.
Yeah.
And half of that would be 217 and a half.
Yeah, so, okay, half plus a half.
So who in there is only a half?
I think we could probably point to a few of them in there.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was done. So now Congress can get back about the business of what?
I don't know.
Of avoiding responsibility.
I don't know. In the meantime, today, we're recording this, of course, on the 7th of January. And today is actually the Eastern Orthodox Christmas.
Right, yeah.
And Vladimir Putin celebrated that in a cathedral, of course, with the Grand Poobah of the Eastern Orthodox Church, the
Patriarch.
Kirill.
Kirill.
Patriarch Kirill, I think. But Putin was all by himself, except for his bodyguards.
Yeah, security purposes, I imagine. So,
So he stood there and, privately celebrated. And in the meantime, breaking the Christmas truce with Ukraine. And that could have been a two-way.
Yeah.
Okay, you fired at us there. We're going to fire back.
Yeah, we, at least I, and you probably do as well, are very skeptical of news that comes out from one side or the other.
I'm skeptical of everybody.
Yeah, trust no
Who are
one.
you? Are you really, Derek?
I can't even tell that I'm not sure I'm here right now. It is difficult to really
Godzilla just poked in the window.
Difficult to really ascertain the truth of what's happening on the ground over there, because it is a war of information. And
especially with the internet, it's much worse now than it used to be.
Yeah, it really is. And this is why social media is such a big deal, and why Twitter has been a key weapon in this war for a long time. You remember back during the protests in Iran during a presidential election. This was back around, 90... Well, maybe it wasn't that far back, but Ahmadinejad was running for president, and there were protests on the streets. And, it had to be after 2000 because after
It was because we talked about it on PID radio.
Right. The State Department under Hillary Clinton basically went to Twitter and said, do not conduct your pre-scheduled maintenance shutdown, because it was during a weekend of protests, and protesters in Tehran were using Twitter to coordinate their flash mobs.
Right.
So the State Department was using Twitter that far back as a weapon. In fact, the State Department under Hillary, we talked about this years ago on PID radio, using social media and using they actually created teams inside the State Department to go overseas and train Twitterati, on how to use social media to stir up unrest in governments that weren't friendly, in nations with governments unfriendly to the United States.
That's an old idea. Propaganda has been used in media, film, television. So why not in social media?
And this is one of the things that's really been made clear over the last 6 years. If we thank Donald Trump for nothing else, I mean, other than just being hilarious as president, I'm saying that tongue in cheek. I mean, he a lot of his policies I liked.
He often says things that really should have been left unsaid.
He needs a filter.
He does.
Yeah. But he forced the uniparty in Washington, D.C., the political class, to really show its hands as to how far they're willing to go to keep power out of representatives who want to serve people, the actual voting constituency, rather than the corporate constituency that pays for their campaigns. The Twitter files that Elon Musk had been revealing or releasing have shown the extent to which the intelligence community was embedded inside Twitter and presumably other social media outlets as well, Facebook. So this goes way beyond just controlling the narrative around the pandemic over the last couple of years. It was really being used to control the narrative regarding all political news coming out of D.C. And it's distressing, because we Americans kind of raised with this idea that speech is free, but even that is changing here over the last year or so, where progressive now are openly saying. Senator Ben Cardin of Maryland just recently saying that social media needs to go farther to eliminate hate speech. He actually said flat out, hate speech is not protected by the First Amendment of the Constitution.
Define hate speach.
See,
it's whatever you don't like.
Therein lies the problem, right? I know. If hate speech isn't protected, then no speech is protected. Now,
well, and by saying that, you mean the quote unquote, air quotes, hate speech.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, if you literally are going online and threatening someone, then
that's not protected.
That is breaking the law.
That is breaking the law. Shouting fire in a crowded theater, because you're endangering human life. But to stretch that to say that by, say, misgendering somebody, and again, there's another word in air quotes.
I know.
That is hate speech and thus not protected.
So many terms right now that really, really get on my nerves.
Language has been weaponized.
Oh, not new.
No, but it's really, again, that's really become obvious to...
That goes back to Ian McNeice back in the day in Rome. Remember when he was in Rome?
Oh, yes, as the news reference to the television series Rome. Ian McNeice, one of our favorite actors.
Favorite scenes.
Yes.
I just like all of his scenes where he's giving the news.
Yeah. But it's become obvious, I think, to even average Americans, people who, until the last decade or so, believed that most of what was in the media was objective and relatively unbiased. It's become so obviously biased here in the last few years that even people who aren't really political junkies have noticed it.
There's another word that's been used a lot lately that, frankly, needs to be revisited because it doesn't mean what they think it does. Brave. Because you come forward and you say this gender or that gender or this belief or that belief. It's very brave of you to come forward and be, frankly, sort of saying I'm going along with the current wave of thought. There's nothing brave about that.
Yes.
But one of the words that's being stunning and brave. Brave is being used or was being used early on for Prince Harry's brand new book that was leaked in Spain, by the way, a few days ago. And so lots of stories are coming out, the translations of the Spanish version, and it is not brave. It is too much information. Harry, we really don't need to know that. And they're not revelations. These are allegations.
Yes.
In most cases, he is alleging that something happened. And you can bet that when he is pinned on it by some interviewer, he'll say, well, it's my truth. Quote, my truth.
Yeah.
That's another phrase that we see over and over again. That simply means that how you view the world is correct. I'm sorry, but there is a capital T truth in this world.
That's right.
And PID Radio, one of the reasons we do this podcast is because Derek and I believe with all our hearts there is a capital T truth. And that truth allowed himself to be crucified on a T-shaped cross so that he could provide resurrection and salvation for you and me, for those of us who believe in him and trust in that gift, that sacrifice. That's brave. That's truth. That is that's the real deal. And sadly, it's getting lost in this relativism that says feels is real. This is how I feel. Therefore, it's reality.
Yeah. It is, I think, part of an ongoing effort to take over the education system. And this is not just new in the United States. I'm going back centuries now.
Oh, yeah.
With the adoption of Enlightenment ideals.
Yes, it goes back to the 18th, well, actually, very late 17th century.
And even before, you could argue that it began in the 16th. But
16th century, you mean?
Yes. Late 16th.
If you go back to John Dee in a way, but then that sort of idea goes back, centuries and centuries.
Well, that's the whole point. Again, it's not progressive, it's regressive. It's returning us to an idea where everyone does what's right in his own eyes, as the Israelites did in the Old Testament.
It is. Thank you for saying it.
That's what is at work here. And it's been a progress of incremental changes in education. The idea that there is a fundamental unchangeable truth, and that you can know the truth about certain things, to this idea now where over time it is accepted in academia that there is no ultimate truth.
Even math and physics are no longer, okay, it's what I feel that, and besides, it's a white man thing.
Well, that's,
What?
yeah. Math is racist. Physics is racist. Everything is racist. Look, well, I don't want to...
No, don't even go down there because, frankly, it's...
But what it is, ultimately, is a way of pitting small tribal groups against one another.
Which is exactly what Jesus said would happen.
Yes, nation against nation. No, it's ethnos against ethnos.
Tribe against tribe.
Against ethnicity against ethnicity.
Yeah.
And that's what has happened here. When somebody like Meghan Markle can claim that she's been discriminated against... It's like, I didn't even know that she had any African ancestry until she made a big deal of it. It's like, sorry, you don't look like it. You don't act that.
It doesn't really matter to her how you and I believe that the world has behaved. Again, it feels as real.
Yeah, I mean,
she said that she was an only child. She's got 2 siblings.
Right. And she went to Northwestern. I'm white, middle class, Anglo-Saxon male. We couldn't afford to go to.
She went to a school when she was young that was attended by Natalie Wood and many other, Hollywoodites. She was raised, frankly, in a form of minor luxury that you and I would. I don't. Look, I was raised by Eastern Kentucky hillbillies. I love it. I wouldn't have been raised any other way.
Salt of the earth.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that there are a lot of people in this world whose skin tone is a lot lighter than Meghan Markle's, who found it a lot more difficult in their life journey than she's had.
Yes, indeed.
So, yeah, she and Harry claiming, help, I'm being oppressed. It's like a Monty Python sketch.
Well,
it's so
here's
ridiculous.
The thing. Skin color shouldn't matter at all.
Yeah. Well, again, this is another thing that's completely reversed during our lifetimes, because in the 1960s, you had Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Regardless of what you think about him, his message was correct. We should be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skins.
Amen.
And yet now we're being told, unless you grade on a color scale, you're racist. Like,
well,
wait a minute.
I know. Look, the bottom line is capital T truth has disappeared, and it is leading to a an almost narcissistic view of the world where do what is right is in his own eyes. That's narcissism.
Yes. Do what
and
that
you
wilt
have to do
shall be the whole of the law.
I know.
Oh.
And this is a spiritual thing. It is not an educational thing, even though that's one aspect of it. These are tools. Education and entertainment and social media, all of politics. These are all weapons wielded by the spirits behind this rise of ethnos versus ethnos.
It manifests in a lot of different ways. One is this critical theory.
Critical race theory.
Well, critical theory is the overarching philosophy. Critical race theory is just a subset of that. Critical theory is a broader discipline, if you will. That's probably not a good term for it, but anyway, it arose in the 1920s out of Frankfurt, and was brought into the United States through Columbia University. But broad strokes now, it just says that there are always a group of oppressed people who are being oppressed by the oppressors, and the oppressed need to rise up and throw off their chains. It's essentially, the doctrine behind communism, but taken down to when you start narrowing that focus even more. Critical race theory is that it's always one skin color, one ethnicity being oppressed by another. But
that's tragic.
But yes, because everybody then is the kids coming through academia today, coming up through our college university system here in the United States anyway.
Kindergarten.
But yes, it's because it's coming into schools, which is why critical race theory has been such a hot topic in the most recent election cycles here in the U.S. Kids are being taught that they are either oppressed or they are oppressors. So if your skin color is one shade, you're oppressed. If you're another shade, well, you're a bad person because your skin is this color, so you are an oppressor. The problem with critical race theory, and this gets back to the overarching spirit behind all of this, ethnos against ethnos,
Right.
is that when the oppressed rise up, throw off their shackles, and take control of the government from the oppressors, they become the oppressors. And then you've got a new group of people being oppressed who then have to in turn rise up. In other words, it's chaos.
It is chaos. And it is a perpetual motion.
It is a perpetual cycle.
Yeah,
Right.
it's tragic. As I said a minute ago, skin color doesn't matter. You can walk up to me and be purple, green. I don't care. I'll give you a hug. I really don't care. And I want you to hug me back.
Might take your temperature first if you're purple green. It's like, 104, maybe not a hug.
No, you feeling okay?
Yeah.
No, I'm a big hugger, and I love when people come up to us at our book tables or when we're at a conference or whatever. I love hearing from you on Facebook or Messenger or whatever. I don't always reply because Derek and I get a lot of messages. So we don't always reply, but we try to. And Jesus doesn't grade on skin color.
Correct.
Yes, the Lord himself actually had a skin color, but that isn't the skin color. That skin color doesn't represent the group he died for. He died for every skin color.
Right. And tragically, critical theory and critical race theory has infiltrated our churches.
It's led to replacement theology.
Replacement theology, and what's the other? Replacement theology on the one side, where the church replaces Israel. Israel has no more role in end times.
It's blacks replace whites or replace Jews.
Yeah, there's another term for it though.
Whatever it is. Kanye West is a big proponent of that, and it's tragic.
The Black Hebrew movement
is, and it's so tragic.
But even in Central America, the Jesuits were using this as a way to stir up rebellion against governments back in the 60s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
The idea that Jesus' mission was not to save us from death, which is clearly what the Bible tells us, but he was sort of a revolutionary, a political revolutionary who was there to stir things up and overthrow the political structure in Jerusalem and ultimately Rome. That's really... That's not in there.
That is not in there.
He did not say, go forth and form political action committees.
He did not. Well, enough of politics. There are other things going on in the world, kaiju monster movies, for one thing.
Economy is one.
Yeah,
we
well,
can talk about that
let's
later.
talk about the economy. Do that right now since you're saying it. And then we'll talk about technology advances and things like that.
Okay.
And kaiju.
We can do economy and then say technology after we take a break.
Sure.
Yeah. There are a number of signals that are flashing red when it comes to the economy. So if you have the means to do so, this is not to scare anyone, just to be aware that things are probably going to take a sharper downturn in 2023, which isn't really to be expected. What's happening in a again, very broad sense. And the older I get, the farther away I get from my economics degree, undergrad degree. So I don't have a master's or a PhD or anything, but the older I get, the more I realize it comes down to basic, simple things like the law of supply and demand, which means that if the supply of one item relative to another item increases, its value decreases. And conversely, when it decreases, then the value of that item increases.
It's the same with dollars.
Exactly.
The more you have,
currency
the
is
less
just
there is.
a commodity. And so prices at the grocery store aren't going up because those things are worth more. It's because your dollars are worth less. We had a sugar rush in the economy with all of the COVID bucks that were sent out, the stimmy checks that went out to everybody, including to people like, well, frankly, like us, who didn't need it.
No.
Because we were still working and drawing income.
Because we work from home.
And we got income, and then we got these extra checks. Well,
It's like, what isn't this?
turned them around to
Gave 'em
other
away.
folks, gave them
Yeah.
away. We hired a contractor who was finding it difficult to find work because everything was shut down. It's like, here, come, build a porch in our house,
Right.
Fix our deck. But that money in circulation increased the supply of money, which meant that dollars are worth less.
It
so
was
prices are
intended
going up.
theoretically to stimulate the economy.
Right. But they're finding out that a lot of the money that they sent out, because they didn't do very good means testing on the money that was sent out, a lot of the requests that they got for paycheck protection were from companies that didn't exist or didn't need it. Southwest Airlines has now got some splaining to do. You
my
got
gosh.
lots of money from
They
the
had
government.
$6 billion that they got from the government,
Right.
and they gave it away to their execs.
Yeah. Hey, bonus time. Maybe you should upgrade your Windows 95
Oh no, it's perfectly fine.
booking system.
It's probably fine.
So,
Only it's not.
right.
And
So
now they're really in trouble.
But this is why we're running into a situation now of stagflation. This is like the Jimmy Carter years over again. Back in the 70s when I was in high school, one year we had a debate topic that dealt with we should significantly change America's energy policy. And I made some argument that we needed to make America energy independent so we weren't dependent on OPEC anymore and return to the years of stagflation.
Well, you were right.
Yeah, stagflation is under traditional economic theory is not supposed to happen because when you have a recession, it's essentially a contraction of the money supply, and so the economy turns down. You're not supposed to have a recession with rising prices. That's stagflation. The economy is slowing down while at the same time prices are going up because the money's worth less. That's what we're in right now. Classical economists would say this can't happen except that we can see it happening right in front of our eyes.
Except we are in a recession.
We
because the actual definition is 2 quarters in a row of contraction.
Yeah, well,
Which we had last year, and the Biden administration said, well,
that's not really what it means.
No.
I mean, okay, we know this was the definition of. Anyway, there are a number of signals that are pointing to a downturn. Shipping companies like FedEx Freight, container shipments. A company called Flexport said a global shipping downturn is underway. The Baltic Dry Index. I'm going to look this up while we're talking here. This is an indicator of what it takes to ship raw materials for the economy: bulk grain, iron ore, coal,
How much is
stuff
actually
like that.
floating on the water at
Right.
a given time?
And this past week, as we're recording this, it dropped faster in a single day than at any point in the history of this chart.
Right.
Now, the current rate on the chart, that was Tuesday of this week. It dropped from like 1725 down to like, 1250 in a single day, which was like a 7.5% decline, something like that. Was that?
I don't know.
Maybe
It's a lot.
maybe more than that. Anyway, the point is it was the largest single day
It
decline.
doesn't matter. Math is fungible.
Yeah, there are no firm answers in math.
Yeah. Or fungible? No, that's
Yeah, it was probably a much higher
commodity.
percentage, like a 25% decline, whatever. But the bottom line is in a single day, it dropped more than anywhere. Now, right now, the index is at 1130. Is at 1130, which is traditionally about where the index has been since they started tracking this in 1984.
Didn't it peak much higher than that?
Oh, yeah. Back in 2007, and I remember this very clearly because that was about the time I just started working for the steel company. Mm-hmm. And mills, because prices were shooting up so quickly, mills that were quoting us on loads of beam or channel or angle or whatever, were basically giving us quotes that were valid for one day. Normally, it's like, okay, we'll send you a quote. It's good for 30 days. We were telling our customers this quote is good for today because we'll have to reprice it tomorrow. And then when things went off the cliff in late 2008, it was going the other direction. And we lost about a quarter of our sales staff when all that hit. So anyway, it hasn't fallen as far as it did back in 2008, but the single day drop this past Tuesday was as fast as it's ever been. So now, does that mean it's guaranteed a recession in 2023? Not necessarily, but there are other indicators that are pointing that way.
There are other indicators.
Yeah.
Amazon has let go 18,000 employees.
Yep.
That's a sign that they are either putting in robots to take care of things, which is partially true, but it also probably means that they're not getting as many orders, which I think is another reason why the Baltic Dry Index is lower, because there's less traffic between China and India, which are the main suppliers for organizations like Amazon and Walmart. Mm-hmm. And I think also you're seeing contraction within countries, that China is now using its own coal, keeping its own steel. Australia's keeping its own coal for the most part. The United States, I'm not sure if we're even mining coal these days, but because of the war in Ukraine, a lot of things suddenly changed. Because of the war in Ukraine. The Cold War began to heat up. This is a proxy war. If you're not aware of it, this is a proxy war between Russia and NATO.
Yes.
It's just that NATO doesn't seem to know it yet.
Well, I think NATO knows it. They're just trying to pretend that it's not for the purpose of
they're
plausible
not
deniability.
admitting it.
They're not admitting it. Yeah, we're sending, guns to Ukraine. And what the Ukrainians choose to do with them, we don't know.
Because of that, some shipping is down because you simply cannot ship in certain areas. It is dangerous to do so. The waters are mined. I think that this is leading to not only protectionism amongst countries, but less commerce, so that you get this Baltic Dry Index go down, and so prices go up. But along with that, we've got things like the highly pathogenic avian influenza, which has been hitting flocks all over the world. Hence, the price of eggs and chicken have gone way up.
Again, supply of those commodities has dropped relative to the amount of money chasing them, so they are now worth more.
Exactly.
Yeah, it takes more to get those. Yeah, again, the Baltic Dry Index, not a perfect indicator, but container shipping rates, I was looking for this chart while I was talking and didn't find it, but the actual rates for shipping from this summer have dropped by more than half, moving containers from say Shanghai to Los Angeles.
And that affects these big companies like Maersk that provide the ships and the containers.
That's another company that's been warning about this. So you got Maersk and other shipping container companies saying that demand for space on their container ships has dropped, which is, again, a leading indicator, because that means companies that need the raw materials they would normally be buying and shipping on those ships are saying, we're not expecting as many orders for new, say, washing machines next year. So,
well, speaking of washing machines, that's going to lead us into tech a little bit, and this also overlaps with a Venn diagram with the economy.
I love Venn diagrams.
I do too. We'll do that right after the break.
You have blessed us with your support during our first year in ministry. You literally make it possible for us to do what we do. And so as we prepare to head into a new year, we want to return the blessing to you. Through January, we've prepared a number of special offers at the Gilbert House store, and we're featuring the Red Wing Saga, Sharon's wonderful series of supernatural thrillers that teaches spiritual warfare through masterful storytelling with fascinating historical mysteries as the backdrop. Now, all 8 novels in the Red Wing Saga, a $160 value, can be yours for just $110, a savings of $50. You'll also find the Derek Gilbert collection,
all 5 of my nonfiction books, a $100 value for just $70. Those are just 2 of the special offers available through January at our online store. You'll find it at gilberthouse.org/store. And as always, we thank you for your prayers and your support.
Welcome back to PID Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
Oh, well, I'm Sharon Gilbert, and we want to remind you before we forget that we have a free app.
Please take advantage of the app because it gets all of our content directly to you. We try to be careful about words that we use without really modifying what we're talking about. But frankly, when we're talking and using free services like some social media sites, it's their playground, their rules. They can yank the plug whenever they choose. But if you get our app, the content is hosted by a Christian company that does not censor us, and it brings it right to your smartphone, tablet, or even your big screen, Roku and Apple TV. It's available for all of those platforms. You'll find it at gilberthouse.org/app or pidradio.com/app.
No, you can get everywhere.
Yes.
By the way, we want to just really quickly thank you, everybody you've been so kind to support us through. You can donate to. In fact, on the app. You've got a donate button, so that will take you to the page on our website.
Yeah, it's at the information. It's not a separate standalone tab.
But you can also go to gilberthouse.org/donate.
Yes.
And you can do that through Stripe now.
Yeah, so if you go to the About tab on our app, you'll find an option that says Give, but that takes you to the website.
And some of you even send us checks. Imagine that. Writing a letter. You guys that do that, thank you so very much.
It is really encouraging, and we truly, truly appreciate it.
And it helps. It really helps because, web hosting and paying for the app and lots of things, they add up. They really add up. Some of the services that we pay for, the big thing at the end of the year, suddenly you're paying for the next year and like, oh, ouch, that's a lot of money. But you guys are really helping us, so thank you.
Spreaker, which hosts all of our podcast audio, that is an expense. Of course, the app does cost.
Big one.
But again, you have helped us to make that possible. So we truly, truly appreciate that. Also want to remind you that we've got streaming video available. If you're overseas and you're looking at some of our video content, for example, our travelogumentaries of our 2 visits to Israel, and there'll be a 3rd one coming up this summer. As soon as we get back from Israel, I start working on the editing. We are making those available as streaming video. The advantage of streaming video over DVD is that you get it in full HD instead of in DVD quality.
And if you're overseas, you're not paying the shipping charge, which is ridiculous. It's more than the cost of the DVD.
Right. And God bless you, because I know we've got folks to whom we've sent things in New Zealand, Australia. But you can access that. There's a link at our website, gilberthouse.org. I'll put a link at pidradio.com too. But we've got video teachings on everything from Jack the Ripper and spiritual warfare to the UFO phenomenon.
It's a crazy
end times
gamut.
prophecy.
It's wild.
It's instant access, full HD.
It is, and thank you very much for that. Thank you also for going to our store, and many of you have ordered things through there. And we also want to remind you that I think nearly every book we've ever contributed to or written and published through our own company, they are available in Kindle.
Yes.
So if you are overseas, rather than pay this, we appreciate you're going through our store, but we also understand that paying $30 or $40 for shipping
can be, a deal breaker.
Yeah.
But on all of the books available in Kindle format, I've put a link to the Amazon page for the Kindle edition at our store. So if you're looking at our store, you see a book you like, you want the electronic version, you can find the link to the Amazon Kindle edition from there.
Yes, thank you, Beather. But by the way, every book that you order, it's an actual paper book through our store. Every one that we've written, we sign. Now, I could sign ones that I haven't written, but, we've also got a few Tom Horn books at our store simply because Derek and I contributed to them in some way. So it's a nice little variety.
Yeah.
So yes, the economy / technology.
Technology.
Yeah, Mecha Godzilla is really what we've got here. No, I was thinking Bankman-Fried because, in a way, this whole idea of digital currency, that's technology. And Bankman-Fried is just, that whole thing is blowing up.
I'm glad you brought that up because this really blew up before, when we took our break. for PID Radio. Sam Bankman-Fried, who's the CEO of FTX. Yeah, FTX and Alameda Research, which was the sister company run by his former girlfriend who threw him under the bus. She's cooperating with the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Bankman-Fried is accused of making off with something like $10 billion of customer funds, money that had been invested with FTX, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, and then shoveling that over to Alameda where they made bad bets on the market. This is a cautionary tale. Be concerned, be very concerned whenever you see somebody with a prospectus that promises a guaranteed rate of return of 15% or higher. No investor, no matter how good they are, can guarantee that kind of a return unless they're cutting corners and doing things they shouldn't ought to do. In other words, unless it's a Ponzi scheme.
Well, this was a startup just a few years ago. It came out of nowhere, suddenly had lots of amazing property that was owned in the Bahamas. That's another red flag right there, that it's all in the Bahamas. He had all these donations. FTX sponsored sports arenas.
Yeah.
So you've got FTX that was on the outside of a sports arena, and I'm sure that these contracts were, you put our name on the outside, advertise, and we will guarantee that over the next whatever number of years that we'll contribute this much. And so they had to give some up front.
Yeah.
But then,
yeah.
do you really get it after that?
So, yeah, some very prominent sports facilities that were named temporarily for FTX that has been changing. But they had celebrity spokespersons like Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Quarterback Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Larry David, who is the co-creator of Seinfeld.
Well, here's the thing. Your agent comes to you and says, okay, I've got a job for you. Here's the script that you read, and here's your check.
Shaquille O'Neal, basketball star Steph Curry. So,
And I'm wondering if they actually got paid or if they got shares.
Well, that could be. Could be.
Shares
Baseball Hall of Famer
bad.
David Ortiz was another. Well, yeah.
They're worth nothing.
Worth nothing now.
Yeah.
But this points up the difference between, and I talked with Guy Malone about this. Guy is an old friend of ours. We talked with him back in 05 and 06 about his Ancient of Days Bible UFO conferences in Roswell, New Mexico. Today, he works as a copy editor for Bitcoin Magazine. He explained the difference between Bitcoin and cryptocurrency generally. Sometimes we conflate those terms. Many of the cryptocurrencies out there, like Ethereum and others, and even Ethereum technically is not a cryptocurrency in the strict sense of the term.
It's tied to an actual commodity of some kind.
It's to be honest, I don't even have my head around it. But technically, it's not. It's traded like one, but it is technically not a cryptocurrency.
To me, they're still digits.
It's bits and bytes when you get right down to it. Fiat currency is fake enough because it's just a piece of paper.
And at one time, you could take to the bank and exchange for silver, but you can't do that anymore.
Speaking of that, by the way, rabbit trail, here in Missouri, there's a bill been proposed in the Missouri State Senate to make silver and currency legal tender, which is the case in several other states here in the U.S. already.
I love that.
So there is a movement. Yeah, there is a movement to bring back, and it's in the Constitution, silver and gold should be actual currency, but I digress. Fiat currency is just, the value is whatever faith you have in that piece of paper. But at least it's a physical thing. Okay, look, I'm giving you these pieces of paper, and so you take those pieces of paper over to the bank. But the fact is, most of us have already sort of in our minds transitioned to this idea that our money is just bits and bytes. No one goes to the bank and say, okay, let me see the pile of money in there that's mine.
No, we don't.
And how do I don't even know. I mean, we trust our local bank and we like our local bank because we know most of the local. I know the bank manager by name. She knows me. And most of the tellers, I know them by name as well. We can call them on the phone. Hi.
We've called them from overseas before.
Yeah. And, hi, Mr. Gilbert. Hi, Mrs. Gilbert. And that's wonderful. But I don't know if our money is actually there or if it's been, if they've got, because fractional banking. Of
course it's not actually there.
Yeah, fractional banking, they only have to keep 10% of what's officially on deposit in the bank.
Is it even 10? I thought it was down to one or two.
No. Well, 10% is what I believe. And I know China reduced its reserve requirements recently to try to goose its economy a little bit, but I think it's 10%. I'd have to look. But
it's not very much.
It's not very much. The bottom line is if we all ran to the bank today to demand our money out, they wouldn't have it.
It's not like It's a Wonderful Life?
It would be just like the bank run on the building and loan, you know?
Yeah, but he actually gave you money to a certain extent.
Yeah.
He said, no, wait, no, your money's in this guy's house and it's in...
Exactly. That's fractional banking. So with Bitcoin, with other cryptocurrencies, digital money, there's nothing. It's just, somewhere, it's on a ledger somewhere.
There's no there.
There's no there. The thing with Bitcoin is that it's a distributed ledger, which means no one company holds the books. You can go to any one of these nodes, any one of these independent folks who are mining crypto or processing transactions.
Yeah.
And get the
but
problem.
My question
becomes
is,
when
if one of those nodes goes out,
then there are other nodes that pick up for it.
Gotcha.
At least that's the belief. Now, I'm with you. I don't plan to ever invest in digital currency, but the difficulty for investors comes when you take your Bitcoin and you deposit it with an exchange like FTX or what's the big one, Binance out of out of China.
Binance is the one that helped to take down FTX.
Yeah, and now Binance is being investigated for money laundering charges. This and the claims that that terrorist groups are using Bitcoin and trafficking. In fact, I talked with Opal Singleton about that. We'll talk more about that interview in just a minute. How trafficking rings use Bitcoin and how members of child pornography dark web sites pay for their access with Bitcoin because it can't be tracked. Federal regulators, not just in the U.S., but around the world, will use that to convince people to vote for or to justify government regulations eliminating Bitcoin. The one advantage that Bitcoin has over that it offers to users is financial privacy. But if federal regulators put an end to that, then and say, okay, digital currency is a great idea because everybody's got a mobile device, and so you can send stimulus money right to somebody, even if they don't have a bank. But it's got to be controlled by our, say, Federal Reserve Bank or the Bank of England or the European Central Bank. There is no more financial privacy, and furthermore, they can control where you spend and how you spend that digital currency. And I think the collapse of FTX is part of this plan to eliminate private cryptocurrencies or digital currencies like Bitcoin.
And here's where we get into, because we've talked about tech a little bit in the economy, and this is, I think, where we get into those four writers that you and I talk about on Unraveling Revelation. One of them appears to be, he's the one carrying the scale, which is not only economy, but also this idea of the zugos, which is how you hook up oxen to a yoke. This idea of controlling you through your ability to buy and sell. That, I think you've hit on it. I think, and we've identified in Unraveling Revelation, Derek and I actually try to identify those writers because two are named because there are 5 entities writing. Hades is coming with Thanatos. So we get Thanatos, the name that is often anglicized as death. But it's more than that. We've got 5 entities, Hades and Thanatos, plus 3 more. And I think that one with the scales, I think you're right. I think it's Nabu.
Nabu, Hermes, Mercury.
Yeah.
The
Mercury as in mercantile. Merchandise.
Right. Commerce. The ancient god of scribes, bookkeeping, but also buying and selling.
Yes.
And that's what is at work here.
And the hilarious thing is that our SWIFT system, our credit card system of moving money, there's a little bit of a fee that's paid every time.
When you use MasterCard anyway.
Well, that's true. Forgot about that.
MasterCard, back in 2009, after the collapse of the subprime mortgage bubble, instituted a 2-cent per transaction charge for merchants. They have to pay 2 cents for the network access brand usage fee, or NABU.
Yes.
it's
You worked really hard to get at that, didn't you,
they,
kids?
they did. They could have just called it the merchant fee or internet fee or
yes, I'm
usage fee.
guessing
Yeah.
that usage fee. I'm betting that most involved with that have no idea who Nabu is.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think many of our listeners, unless you've read the books that we've written or that you've been watching Unraveling Revelation, you probably don't know who he is.
No, Nabu was really, really important. I mean, especially when you look at the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which was the kingdom of Nebuchadnezzar, whose name was Nabu. Preserve the sun, or say Nabu protect his borders. Nabu was the theophoric element in a number of very prominent politicians, rulers back in the day. Nebuchadnezzar's father was Nabopolassar. You had another prominent general whose name was Nabu-Zaradan, and the last king was Nabonidus. So very prominent, even down to the 1st century BC, but then he was adopted into the Greek and Roman pantheons as Hermes and Mercury. And to this day, you could make a real good case that, look, if lawyers and bankers don't run the world, who does?
Who does? That's the question.
And that was essentially the domain of the ancient Babylonian god Nabu.
It's one of the reasons that you and I are writing this book that we're hoping will get done this year, called The Gates of Hell. We're trying not to rush it because even though last year we thought we were going to get it out really, by the summer, other things came along that sort of delayed us. But I'm glad they did because we have discovered so many other things in the meantime.
Yeah. Even getting down to things like where Jesus did certain things in his ministry that relate to this subject.
Yes. Yes. And we'll visit some of those when we go to Israel in March. And those of you who are going with us, we cannot wait to see you again or to meet you for the first time. And if you haven't already signed up, by the time you're listening to this, that third bus may be close to complete. So if you are interested at all, you need to contact Lipkin Tours ASAP.
Yeah, and you can find the link through our website, gilberthouse.org/travel. That's easier than the URL at Lipkin Tours. But there's a link right there at the top of that page that will take you to the Lipkin Tours website.
And by the way, we're going to go back next year.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
We have dates for 2024
Gilbert House
already.
tour of Israel. And we've got a big announcement about that, but we can't make it yet.
Not just yet.
Not just yet.
Well, what else we want to touch on here? By the way, speaking of digital currency, a former central banker from China said that their experiment with the digital yuan has not gone as well as they wanted.
Plan, eh?
No, they're not finding people using it as much as they had hoped. They found that the number of digital yuan transactions 2 years after they launched it has just clicked over 100 billion yuan, which is about $14 billion. But that's after 2 years.
You know what's ironic about the name of their currency, the yuan? There was a previous dynasty called the Yuan dynasty.
Right.
That was actually Mongolian.
It's similar to the Japanese word yen, by the way.
They are the first dynasty to have created a transactional currency. They printed money.
Wow, that makes sense.
That's why it's called the yuan.
Yeah, okay.
Which is hilarious because most of the Chinese who run the place are Han dynasty.
Right.
So they're Han tribe, if you want to put it that way, although I'm sure there are many tribes within the Han family. But to name it after Mongolian, it's a little ironic.
That is weird. But they say that less than a third of the people that use mobile payments in China, which is like 900 million people, using apps for payment, which has become more and more popular. Just wave your phone at the checkout, and that they deduct the money from your account. Only about 261 million have set up an e-yuan and a digital yuan wallet, but many of those aren't even using the digital currency. The New York Federal Reserve is testing one out right now, though. Yeah, the New York Fed is testing a digital buck, a digital dollar, with the
Digidoll?
Yeah, and it's got some rather big players, financial heavy hitters in the New York area that are part of this 12-week trial run. So it is coming. It is coming. And I think that we just have to be prepared for it. I know that there are some Christians out there that are trying to set up a parallel economy. I pray for their success. I wish them well. Pray God blesses them. But we as Christians just need to be aware of the times that we're in and what's going on.
By the way, getting back to the four horses, the four riders, Thanatos, we mentioned a minute ago, he has a couple of weapons. One of them is to spread plague, which is also something Apollo did, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And he also, he wields a rhomphaia, which is a curved machete kind of blade that was used in butchering animals. So this isn't a just get out and stab or swipe off your head. This is butchering. And I think it's interesting in that we've got so many knife attacks in the United States and in England that are used, the perpetrators use machete-type blades.
Yeah. It's a spiritual thing.
It is a spiritual thing. But also getting to the idea of plagues, I keep an idea on a look on all these things going around the world. In Turkey, and again, don't panic. We're going to try to go to Turkey in October of this year, but you're not going to be plagued by this. There are 50 villages in a part of Turkey that have been quarantined because smallpox was detected in their animals. I wasn't even aware that animals could get smallpox. I knew that there was a version of the pox virus in cows called cowpox. So, and there are other animal versions of this, but monkeypox being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
But
which has been rebranded MPX.
I know, MPOX, Mpox. But yes, smallpox was detected. So smallpox has not gone away, and our military continues to keep vaccines against smallpox in reserve should it break out in a region that is a theater of war. We also, the United States and Russia, keep frozen samples of smallpox on hand, even though theoretically the disease has been eradicated, in which case I was asked, why is smallpox breaking out in Turkey?
That's a really good question. Do not have an
know.
answer for that.
Smallpox back in the day it would just periodically go through an entire population in anywhere in the world. And eventually it was said that we managed through vaccination programs and the correct way of doing it. You'd ring vaccinate an entire city and then make sure that it didn't propagate throughout the population over the course of the next 10 or 20 years. And then you said, hey, it's gone. I don't think it's gone.
No, it's been greatly reduced. And I think in large part because of improved nutrition and better hygiene.
Well, and it didn't propagate for a long, long, long time because most of us were vaccinated against smallpox.
True.
I was.
Yeah.
But no longer do you see that. You also no longer see most countries vaccinate against polio, which is making another comeback.
And I think this is an important point to make, that vaccine is based on a tried and true technology.
Vaccine tech. Yeah.
And it's a virus that doesn't mutate very quickly.
Exactly.
Unlike the RNA-based
Unlike some
viruses.
of them. Well, yeah, there are a lot of viruses out there that we call the common cold, and they look, by the end of the day, it will have changed some of its genes.
Yeah. Yeah, go back 3 years on Sci Friday, and you'll see that you were talking about this back then when the news was coming out of China about this new virus.
Yeah, we won't go back into that anymore.
Right.
But yes, there are things that are propagating around the world, not just the influenza that's going through flocks, but also, well, I've seen anthrax show up in some countries.
And as long as we're speaking about, generally speaking, roughly speaking, technology, there's a startup company in Mexico that claims it's launched sulfur particles into the atmosphere. Geoengineering, solar geoengineering.
That's not, I know I've seen the idea of putting a shield between us and the sun. Well, that admits that the sun actually has a role to play in so-called climate change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Well, no, they'd be claiming that they're just trying to offset human activity. But the point is, we've been told for years that the idea
getting rid of humans?
Well, that's part of it. That really is. But we've been told for years that chemtrails were just a conspiracy theory, and now it's being floated out there as a...
Get that tinfoil hat off your head. You're too cute wearing that thing. Just cute as a button. He just had a birthday. Derek just had a birthday, and he is He's now 61 years old.
Yes.
Couldn't be
yes.
cuter. Every day you get cuter. How do you pull that off?
Well,
You exercise regularly by tapping on a keyboard.
yeah, that's the majority of it. My fingers are in great shape.
We finally invested in a treadmill, one of those analog ones. You have to actually power it with your legs.
Yeah, it doesn't have a motor in it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but we're looking forward to that coming in next week.
Yeah, so that'll hopefully get us a little bit more exercise.
We're going to just be so buff.
Yeah.
Talk about, kaiju Sharon.
That's it. Well, 2023 is going to be an interesting year. We've got, of course, the Israel tour, and pray that the October tour comes together.
I pray it does. We're
Turkey,
working on
because
it.
that should be really interesting as well.
I know.
Visiting
Aaron
Göbekli
Judkins,
Tepe,
Judd Burton going with us probably.
We've not made that official, but that
Oh,
is,
sorry. I just blurted it out.
We'll
that's
call
what
that
they're
a
telling
soft
us.
launch. Yes.
Soft launch.
But assuming that it comes together.
They're still working on it because
they
Judd
will.
is still trying to recover from his illness from last year. He's getting stronger every day.
And today is his birthday.
Happy birthday, Judd.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of good things, we just got for your birthday, you got a Kenny C t-shirt.
Oh, yes.
So props to Kenny C for
Rock
sending
with
that to
Kenny
us.
C.
Thank you very much.
One of our favorite people. Hey, you got a shirt as well.
I
so
know
now
I
we can
did. What was your
match
birthday?
and
So we'll do that.
We'll have to take those to Israel and get pictures taken on the Mount of Olives or something with Kenny C t-shirts.
Yeah. One of these days, Kenny, you need to go to Israel with us.
That would be
so awesome.
Yeah. Have Kenny
Playing his guitar.
play on the Temple Mount.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
No,
That
I don't
probably
think.
wouldn't
No, I don't
be
think that.
allowed.
No, it would
Yeah.
really. Rock would be another meaning while we were up there. In fact, they would be launched at our heads.
Yeah, that would not go well.
No, things are. By the way, Netanyahu is officially over the break. He is officially taken over as prime minister.
Yeah,
and he's got a cabinet now, and some members of his cabinet perhaps aren't as popular with the West as they might have been.
Yeah, Itamar Ben-Gvir, who's
Head of
security
the police.
chief, head of police, right, and as part of the deal to join the coalition, apparently negotiated responsibility for the border police in Judea and Samaria, from which is currently under control of the military, to under his control. And the chief of staff for the military just informed Prime Minister Netanyahu that if this is the case, we will not obey any orders from Mr. Ben-Gvir. In fact, we will redeploy the border police and replace them with reservists.
Ooh.
So because they don't want Ben-Gvir, because they feel it would inflame the situation.
He's a lightning rod.
He is a lightning rod. He went to the Temple Mount this past week.
He's done that in the past.
He has, but this is the first time he's done it as a member of the government
Cabinet,
coalition, as a cabinet member. And so the UN Security Council is going to take up the issue of his visit to the Temple Mount as a matter for the United Nations Security Council.
Do you feel sometimes like, Jerusalem is becoming a cup of trembling?
Well, yeah, I can tell. We've started, by the way, a TikTok channel, and mainly is to show little video clips.
I'm not a TikTok fan at all.
No,
I really do not like that
I
app.
find it really annoying.
It's annoying.
Oh, it is. It's constantly badgering you with reminders. I'm only putting up with it just so we can. We put up a series of short video clips drawn from our tour videos, just to try to reach a different audience.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that a lot of the comments there are from people who don't like Israel. So I'm just going through delete.
Yeah.
But,
by the way, also, thank you for many of you, if you've just found PID Radio because you've been watching Unraveling Revelation videos on YouTube, we've gotten like over 30,000 views of this one program that you put up there with Doug Hamp.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm startled.
I'm
But,
loving it. And there's a lot of engagement in the comments. Really
and
good engagement.
Intelligent engagement.
Yeah.
Right. So we appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube or listening to this even on YouTube, because we will share this to YouTube as well, we just encourage you, again, to go back and get our free app, because YouTube, it's their playground. We're not paying to be on YouTube, and so they could change the rules and pull the plug anytime.
No, go to the app.
So get our app, and that way
support
it's
that Christian
all
company.
in. Yeah, and it's all in one place there.
It is indeed. Well, I think we've blathered on.
We have.
Enough.
Thank you for letting us take space inside your head for this hour. And until next time, tomorrow, be sure to join us for the Gilbert House Fellowship, our Bible study.
We're back tomorrow morning with that.
And tomorrow night, interview on my podcast, A View from the Bunker with Opal Singleton.
Oh, that is so good.
She is the CEO of a ministry called Million Kids, which is working to protect children against trafficking. They've got a new documentary film that she has helped to raise the funds to produce called Sextortion, the Hidden Pandemic. It is horrific. If you've got children or grandchildren and they've got a mobile device that's connected to the internet, you need to listen or watch that interview.
Oh my gosh, story just yesterday about an 11-year-old girl that got pulled into that on Spotify. Spotify was
That's
used.
not even a video platform.
I know. They used the comments.
Oh, man.
And they were talking to one another in the title for the comment. Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's being used by predators, but even more than that, even more than just individual predators, gangs of predators in places like Ivory Coast and Pakistan are targeting kids in the West.
Yeah. This is spiritual.
Yeah, so do check that out. That's at vftb.net, or better yet, just get the app. And until next time, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. Have a glorious week, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
PID Radio is an outreach of Gilbert House Ministries, released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Follow us online, PIDradio.com, Twitter @PIDRadio, or by downloading our free app, PIDradio.com/app, or GilbertHouse.org/app. Join us each week for our Bible study, the Gilbert House Fellowship.